I stared at the glossy brochure in disbelief, my fingers trembling as I traced the outline of a sprawling beachfront mansion. This wasn't just any vacation home, it was a multi-million-dollar estate in Malibu, and apparently it now belonged to us. Ella, darling, isn't it magnificent? Matthew's booming voice startled me out of my trance. He swept into the kitchen, all 6'2" of him radiating excitement. I've been keeping this under wraps for weeks. Surprise! I forced a smile, my mind racing. It's certainly something, Matthew. When did you decide on this? He waved his hand dismissively. Oh, you know how these things go. The opportunity presented itself, and I had to act fast. We can't let prime real estate slip through our fingers, can we? My stomach churned. But Matthew, we never discussed. Discussed? He chuckled, cutting me off. Ella, my dear, some decisions just have to be made. You're always so cautious, always wanting to save, but we have to live a little. I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady. It's not about living a little. It's about our future, our son's education. And what better education than summers in Malibu? Matthew interrupted again, his eyes gleaming. Speaking of which, I've invited my parents down next week to celebrate. They're thrilled. My heart sank. Next week? But I have that important presentation at work, and Tommy has his. I'm sure you can reschedule, Matthew said, already turning away. This is family, Ella. It's important. As he strode out of the kitchen, whistling cheerfully, I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly weak. This wasn't the first time Matthew had made unilateral decisions, but it was by far the most significant. Our entire financial future had just shifted without my input or consent. The sound of the front door opening jolted me back to reality. Mom? Dad? Tommy's voice called out. I quickly tucked the brochure into a drawer and plastered on a smile as our 10-year-old son bounded into the kitchen. Hey, sweetie, I said, ruffling his hair. How was school? Tommy's face lit up. Great. Miss Johnson said I got the highest score on the science test. Can we call Grandma and Grandpa to tell them? My smile faltered for a moment. That's wonderful, honey. But why don't we wait a bit before calling? Your dad's parents are coming to visit next week, and we'll be pretty busy getting ready. Tommy's excitement dimmed. Oh, but what about my birthday next month? You said we could have it at Grandma and Grandpa's farm, remember? I felt a pang in my chest. We'll have to see, sweetie. Things might be a bit complicated with the new house and all. New house? Tommy's eyes widened. What new house? I cursed inwardly, realizing my slip. It's a surprise your dad's planning, but let's not talk about it just yet, okay? Why don't you go start your homework, and I'll be up to help in a bit. As Tommy trudged upstairs, I leaned against the counter, my mind whirling. How had my life spun so far out of control? I'd always prided myself on being a planner, on working hard for our family's future. But now it felt like I was just a passenger in my own life, watching helplessly as Matthew steered us in whatever direction he pleased. The kitchen suddenly felt stifling. I needed air, needed to think. Grabbing my keys, I headed for the door. Where are you off to? Matthew called from his study. Just going for a quick drive, I managed to reply. I need to clear my head. As I climbed into my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Matthew. Don't forget to pick up some champagne for next week's celebration. I stared at the message, a mix of emotions churning inside me. Something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this, always sidelined, always dismissed. But what could I do? As I pulled out of the driveway, I had no idea where I was going. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't go on like this anymore. It was time to take control of my life, one way or another. The doorbell chimed, and I felt my stomach lurch. Matthew's parents had arrived, right on cue. I smoothed my dress, took a deep breath, and plastered on my best smile as I opened the door. Ella, darling! Margaret, my mother-in-law, swept in, enveloping me in a cloud of expensive perfume. How wonderful to see you! Where's our Matthew? Before I could answer, Matthew appeared behind me, all smiles and charm. Mom, Dad, welcome! I stepped back, watching as they embraced, feeling like an outsider in my own home. George, my father-in-law, clapped Matthew on the back. So, son, when do we get to see this new paradise of yours? Soon enough, Dad, Matthew laughed. But first, let's celebrate. As if on cue, Tommy came bounding down the stairs. Grandma! Grandpa! Margaret's eyes lit up. There's our little prince. Come give Grandma a hug. I watched as Tommy was swept into the whirlwind of attention, feeling a pang of something I couldn't quite name. Envy? Resentment? I pushed the feeling aside and headed to the kitchen to fetch the champagne. Need any help, dear? Margaret's voice startled me as I reached for the glasses. Oh no, I've got it. I said, trying to keep my voice light. You're our guest. She waved her hand dismissively. Nonsense. We're family. She began arranging hors d'oeuvres on a platter, chattering away. You know, Ella, I always knew Matthew would do well for himself. He's always had such ambition, such drive. Not like some people who are content to just settle. I felt my cheeks flush, knowing full well she was referring to my own family. My parents have always been happy with what they have, I said, a defensive edge creeping into my voice. Margaret patted my arm condescendingly. Of course, dear, there's nothing wrong with simplicity. But Matthew, he's destined for greater things. And now, with this new house, it's a whole new world opening up for you all. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that this new world had been thrust upon me without my consent. Instead, I forced a smile and carried the champagne into the living room. Matthew was regaling his father with tales of the new house. And the view, Dad, you wouldn't believe it. We'll be rubbing elbows with celebrities before you know it. That's my boy, George boomed. Always reaching for the stars. You know, Ella, he turned to me. You're a lucky woman. Not everyone gets to live the high life like this. I felt my smile falter. We were doing just fine before, George. Sometimes it's not about the high life, but about building something together as a team. The room fell silent for a moment. Matthew cleared his throat. Ella, darling, why don't you pour the champagne? We're here to celebrate, after all. As I poured, my hands shaking slightly, Margaret piped up. Oh, Matthew, we must discuss Tommy's education. With this new social circle you'll be in, we simply must consider Westridge Academy. It's where all the right families send their children. I nearly dropped the bottle. Westridge? But that's hours away from here. Tommy's happy at his current school, and all his friends are there. Matthew waved his hand dismissively. Now, Ella, let's not be hasty. Westridge could open up a world of opportunities for Tommy. But we haven't even discussed this, I protested, my voice rising. Tommy's education isn't something to be decided on a whim. The room fell silent again, all eyes on me. I could feel the judgment radiating from Margaret and George, the disappointment in Matthew's eyes. Perhaps, Margaret said coolly, this isn't the best time to discuss such matters. Shall we toast to the new house? As glasses clinked and congratulations were exchanged, I stood there, champagne untouched, feeling more alone than ever. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about my family, my son's future, my very place in this life Matthew was crafting. As laughter and chatter filled the room, a realization hit me like a thunderbolt. If I didn't find my voice soon, I'd lose everything that truly mattered. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? I stood in the doorway of Tommy's room, watching him sleep peacefully, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in our family. The house was finally quiet after Matthew's parents had left, but the tension lingered like a thick fog. A floorboard creaked behind me. Ella? Matthew's voice was soft, almost apologetic. Can we talk? I turned, steeling myself. About what, Matthew? About how you've decided our son's future without even consulting me? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I know you're upset about the Westridge Academy thing, but you have to see the bigger picture here. The bigger picture? I hissed, careful not to wake Tommy. And what exactly is that? Matthew guided me downstairs to his study, closing the door behind us. Ella, with this new house, we're entering a different league. Tommy needs to be prepared for that world. I felt my anger rising. That world? Matthew, he's 10 years old. He needs his friends, his familiar surroundings, not some pretentious prep school hours away from home. It's not pretentious, it's prestigious, Matthew countered. Do you know how many doors this could open for him? And what about the doors it could close? I shot back. His childhood? His sense of belonging? Matthew's face hardened. I've already submitted the application. The words hit me like a physical blow. You what? I submitted the application, he repeated, his tone maddeningly calm. They're very selective, Ella. We can't afford to miss this opportunity. I felt dizzy, gripping the edge of his desk for support. How could you do this without even talking to me? Without talking to Tommy? Because I knew you'd react like this, Matthew said, exasperation creeping into his voice. You always want to play it safe, stick to what you know, but that's not how you get ahead in life. Get ahead? I echoed, incredulous. Is that all you care about? What about our son's happiness? Matthew's eyes flashed. Of course I care about his happiness, but sometimes as parents we have to make tough decisions for their future. We? I laughed bitterly. There is no we in this decision, Matthew. You've made that perfectly clear. A tense silence fell between us. I could see the muscle in Matthew's jaw working as he struggled to control his temper. "Look," he finally said, his voice forcibly calm, "what's done is done. The application is in. If he gets accepted, we'll discuss it as a family," I interrupted. "All of us, including Tommy." Matthew's eyes narrowed. "Ella, be reasonable. You can't possibly expect a child to make this kind of decision. And you can't possibly expect me to just roll over and accept every decision you make without my input," I snapped back. Just then, a small voice from the doorway made us both freeze. "Mom, Dad, why are you fighting?" We turned to see Tommy standing there, his eyes wide and confused. My heart sank. How much had he heard? "We're not fighting, champ," Matthew said quickly, his voice suddenly warm and reassuring. "Your mom and I were just having a spirited discussion about your future." I knelt down to Tommy's level, forcing a smile. "Everything's okay, sweetie. Why don't you go back to bed? We'll talk in the morning." As I tucked Tommy back in, my mind was racing. This wasn't just about a school anymore. It was about my place in this family, my voice in our son's life. Returning to the study, I found Matthew pouring himself a drink. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "Really talk, Matthew, about everything." He nodded slowly, gesturing for me to sit. As I did, I realized this conversation could change everything. The question was, were we ready for what came next? The calendar on the fridge mocked me. Tommy's birthday circled in bright red marker. 2 weeks away, and still no plans. I took a deep breath and dialed my mother's number. "Mom, it's me," I said, twirling the phone cord nervously. "I was thinking about Tommy's birthday." "Oh, honey?" Her voice brightened. "Your father and I were just talking about that. We'd love to host it here at the farm. Tommy always has such a wonderful time with the animals." I smiled, remembering Tommy's joy during our last visit. "That sounds perfect, Mom. I'll just need to run it by Matthew and—" "Run what by me?" Matthew's voice startled me as he entered the kitchen. "I'll call you back, Mom," I said quickly, hanging up. Matthew raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" I straightened my shoulders. "I was talking to my mom about hosting Tommy's birthday at the farm. You know how much he loves it there." Matthew's face clouded. "Ella, we've discussed this. With the new house and our changing social circle, we need to be more selective about these things." "Selective?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. "Matthew, this is our son's birthday, not a networking event," he sighed, patronizing. "You don't understand. These early connections are crucial. I was thinking we could have a party at the country club. The Andersons' son just had his there, and it was quite the affair." I felt my temper rising. "The country club? Tommy doesn't even know anyone there. He wants to be with his friends, his grandparents." "He'll make new friends," Matthew interrupted. "Better friends. As for your parents—" He trailed off, his expression saying what he wouldn't voice aloud. "What about my parents?" I challenged, my voice sharp. Matthew had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Ella, be reasonable. They're lovely people, but they're not the sort of influence Tommy needs right now." The words hit me like a slap. Not the sort of influence? They're his grandparents, Matthew. They love him unconditionally, which is more than I can say for your parents and their constant judgment. "That's enough," Matthew snapped. "I've already made arrangements at the club. It's done." I stared at him, a horrible realization dawning. You already planned it without even asking me?" He had the audacity to look surprised at my reaction. "I thought you'd be pleased. It's an exclusive venue, Ella. Do you know how many strings I had to pull?" "I don't care about strings or exclusivity," I shouted, my composure finally shattering. "This is our son's birthday, not some corporate event you can dictate." Tommy's voice cut through our argument. "Mom? Dad? What's going on?" We both turned to see him standing in the doorway, confusion and hurt etched on his young face. Matthew recovered first, his voice smoothing into that falsely cheerful tone he'd been using more and more lately. "Nothing to worry about, champ. We were just discussing your birthday plans. How does a party at the country club sound?" Tommy's face fell. "But I thought we were going to Grandma and Grandpa's farm." "You promised, Mom." The accusation in his voice broke my heart. "Tommy, Your mother was mistaken," Matthew cut in. "We're having a much better party at the club. You'll love it." I watched, helpless, as disappointment clouded Tommy's eyes. He nodded silently and retreated upstairs. The kitchen fell into a tense silence. Matthew busied himself with his phone, already moving on as if the matter was settled. But for me, something had shattered. This wasn't just about a birthday party. It was about my voice in this family, my son's happiness, the values we were meant to share. As I stood there watching Matthew casually dismiss our son's wishes and my input, I felt something shift inside me. A resolve hardened, born of countless dismissals and unilateral decisions. This couldn't go on. For Tommy's sake, for my own, something had to change. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the words I never thought I'd say. Matthew, we need to talk. About everything. About us. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. What do you mean? I mean, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, that if something doesn't change, and soon, I'm not sure there's going to be an us anymore. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication, and as I watched shock and disbelief war on Matthew's face, I knew our lives were about to change irrevocably. The tension in our house had become unbearable. Tommy's birthday party at the country club had been a disaster. He'd spent most of it sulking in a corner, missing his friends and grandparents. Matthew, oblivious, had schmoozed with his new high society acquaintances, leaving me to deal with our miserable son. I was folding laundry when Matthew burst into the bedroom, waving an envelope. Ella! Fantastic news! Tommy's been accepted to Westridge Academy. My stomach dropped. Matthew, we agreed to discuss this as a family. He waved dismissively. Come on, Ella. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can't pass it up. We, I echoed, my voice rising. There is no we in this decision, Matthew. You've made that perfectly clear. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired of being sidelined in my own family. I exploded, throwing down the shirt I was folding. The house, the school, Tommy's birthday. You make all these decisions without me, without considering what I want, what Tommy wants. Matthew's face hardened. I'm doing what's best for this family. Someone has to think about our future. Our future? I laughed bitterly. Or your future? Your status? Your precious social climbing? Don't be ridiculous, he snapped. Everything I do is for us, for Tommy. Is it? I challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to create some perfect, polished family that fits your new lifestyle. But we're not accessories, Matthew. We're people, with feelings and opinions that you constantly ignore. His face flushed with anger. You're being hysterical. This is exactly why I make these decisions. You're too emotional, too attached to the past. We need to move forward, Ella. Up in the world. Up in the world? I repeated, incredulous. And what about the world we've built here? Our friends, our community, Tommy's school? Matthew's voice turned cold. Those things don't matter anymore. We're in a different league now. Blood is thicker than water, Ella. My family understands that. It's time you did too. The words hit me like a physical blow. Blood is thicker than water? Is that what you think of me? Of my family? He had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but pressed on. I didn't mean it like that. But you have to admit, my parents have connections, influence. They can open doors for Tommy that your family simply can't. I felt something snap inside me. My family might not have connections or influence, Matthew, but they have love. Unconditional love. For me and for Tommy. Can you say the same about your parents? About yourself? Silence fell between us, heavy and charged. Matthew stared at me, shock and anger warring on his face. What are you saying? He finally asked, his voice dangerously low. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I'm saying that I don't recognize you anymore, Matthew, or this life you're trying to force us into, and I'm not sure I want to be a part of it. His eyes widened. Ella, you can't mean. I do, I interrupted, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I think I need some time away, to think, to figure out what I want for myself and for Tommy. Matthew's face paled. You're not taking my son anywhere. Our son, I corrected, a newfound strength surging through me. And yes, I am. We're going to stay with my parents for a while. I won't allow it, he growled. I met his gaze unflinchingly. You don't have a choice, Matthew, not anymore. As I turned to leave the room, my heart pounding but my resolve firm, I heard him call out, If you walk out that door, Ella, don't bother coming back. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, I replied, Maybe I won't. With those words hanging in the air, I walked out, ready to face whatever came next. It was time to reclaim my voice, my life, and my family, even if it meant leaving behind the man I thought I knew. The law office felt cold and impersonal, much like my marriage had become. I sat across from Linda, the divorce attorney my friend had recommended, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. Mrs. Thompson, Linda began, her voice gentle but firm, are you absolutely certain you want to proceed with this separation? I took a deep breath. Matthew's words echoing in my mind. Blood is thicker than water. The final nail in the coffin of our relationship. Yes, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I'm certain. Linda nodded, pulling out a stack of papers. All right then, let's go over your options. As she spoke about custody arrangements and asset division, my mind wandered to Tommy. He was staying with my parents, confused and upset about why we weren't at home. The guilt gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. This was for him as much as it was for me. Mrs. Thompson? Linda's voice snapped me back to attention. There's something else we need to discuss. Your husband's recent property acquisition. My stomach churned. The Malibu house. The beginning of the end. Given the timing and the fact that it was purchased without your knowledge, we have grounds to claim it as a marital asset, Linda explained. This could significantly impact the division of property. I felt a surge of vindication, quickly followed by a wave of sadness. How had we come to this? As I left Linda's office, my phone buzzed. A text from Matthew, "Where are you? We need to talk." I ignored it, my fingers hovering over my parents' number instead. I needed to hear Tommy's voice. Mom? His small voice came through the speaker, and I felt my eyes well up. Hey, sweetie, how are you doing? When are we coming home? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Soon, honey. I promise. Things are just a little complicated right now. Is it because of Dad? Are you guys getting a divorce like Billy's parents? The directness of his question caught me off guard. Tommy, It's not that simple. Your dad and I, It's okay, Mom, he interrupted, his voice suddenly older than his years. I heard you guys fighting. I know Dad's been mean to you. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Oh, Tommy, I'm so sorry you had to hear that. Don't be sorry, Mom. Just come get me. We don't need Dad if he's going to be mean. His words, so innocent, yet so profound, steeled my resolve. You're right, sweetie. We don't. I'll be there soon, okay? As I hung up, another text from Matthew flashed on my screen. Ella, if you don't come home right now, I swear I'll... I deleted it without reading further. There was nothing left to say. Driving to my parents' house, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I was burning bridges, leaping into the unknown. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Tommy's face pressed against the window, his eyes lighting up as he spotted me. My parents appeared behind him, their expressions a mix of concern and support. I stepped out of the car and Tommy came running, throwing himself into my arms. As I held him tight, I knew with absolute certainty that I was making the right choice. Are we going home? Tommy asked, looking up at me. I smiled, ruffling his hair. No, sweetie, we're going to make a new home. Just you and me. What about Dad? I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. Dad needs some time to think about things, but we're going to be okay, I promise. As we walked into my parents' house, my phone buzzed again. Matthew's name flashed on the screen, but this time I didn't even glance at the message. Instead, I turned off my phone and focused on my son, on our future. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles and emotional turmoil. But looking at Tommy's trusting face, I knew I had the strength to face whatever came next. It was time to reclaim our lives, to build something new from the ashes of what we'd lost. For the first time in years, I felt hope blooming in my chest. We were going to be okay. More than okay. We were going to thrive. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat beside Linda, my lawyer. Across the aisle, Matthew glared at me, his once warm eyes now cold and unrecognizable. The judge's gavel echoed through the room, silencing the murmurs. In the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, the judge began, her voice stern and impartial. We are here to determine custody arrangements and asset division. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. Everything hinged on this moment. Linda stood, her voice steady. Your Honor, we have evidence of Mr. Thompson's pattern of unilateral decision-making, financial manipulation, and emotional neglect towards both Mrs. Thompson and their son, Tommy. She presented a folder, and I watched Matthew's face contort with rage. Objection! His lawyer shouted. These claims are baseless and inflammatory. The judge raised her hand. Overruled. Continue, counselor. As Linda laid out our case, the Malibu house, the school application, the isolation from my family, I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. How had we come to this? Matthew's lawyer countered, painting me as an ungrateful wife, unable to appreciate the life Matthew had provided. Mrs. Thompson is attempting to punish my client for his success, he argued. She's using their son as a pawn in her vindictive game. I bit my lip, fighting back tears. Is that how Matthew saw me now? The judge called a recess, and I stepped into the hallway, gasping for air. That's when I saw him, Tommy, sitting with my parents, his small face etched with worry. "Mom," he called out, running towards me. I knelt down, embracing him tightly. "Hey, sweetie, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Are you and Dad really never going to live together again?" My heart shattered. "Oh, Tommy, it's complicated, but—" "Mrs. Thompson." Matthew's cold voice cut through the moment. A word. I stood, positioning myself between Matthew and Tommy. "What is it?" His eyes darted to our son, then back to me. "Call off this charade," he hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself and ruining our family." "Our family?" I echoed, incredulous. "The one you've been systematically pushing me out of?" "Don't be dramatic," he scoffed. "I gave you everything. A beautiful home, financial security." "Everything except respect," I interrupted. "Everything except a voice in our marriage, in our son's life." Matthew's face hardened. "Fine. You want to play hardball? I'll bury you, Ella. I'll take everything. The house, the cars, Tommy. You'll be left with nothing." As he stormed off, I felt my legs weaken. Could he really do that? "Mom?" Tommy's small voice brought me back. "Is Dad going to take me away?" I knelt down again, looking into his frightened eyes. "No, sweetheart, I won't let that happen. I promise." As we re-entered the courtroom, I felt a new resolve stealing my spine. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Tommy, about breaking the cycle of control and disrespect. The judge called us to order, ready to deliver her decision. I held my breath, feeling the weight of our future hanging in the balance. "After careful consideration of the evidence presented," she began, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom, "I have reached a decision regarding custody and asset division." I gripped Linda's hand, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment that would define our lives moving forward. "In the matter of custody," the judge continued, "I hereby grant primary custody to—" Time seemed to slow down. I could hear my own heartbeat, see Matthew's confident smirk, feel the weight of Tommy's future in my hands. Whatever the judge said next would change everything. But as I sat there, trembling yet determined, I knew one thing for certain. I was done being silent, done being sidelined. Whatever happened, I would fight for my son, for my voice, for the life we deserved. The judge took a breath, ready to deliver her verdict, and I braced myself for the battle ahead. The morning sun streamed through the windows of our new apartment as I packed Tommy's lunch for school. It had been 6 months since the judge's ruling, granting me primary custody and a fair division of assets. 6 months of rebuilding, of finding our footing in this new life. "Mom!" Tommy called, racing into the kitchen. "Don't forget, it's career day at school. Are you still coming?" I smiled, ruffling his hair. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, kiddo." As we drove to school, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. The fear and uncertainty that had clouded those first few weeks after the divorce had given way to a quiet confidence. We were making it, Tommy and I, on our own terms. At the school, I took my place among the other parents, waiting for my turn to speak. I caught sight of Matthew across the room, here for his allotted time with Tommy. Our eyes met briefly, and I was surprised to see a flicker of something, regret, respect, in his gaze before he looked away. When it was my turn, I stood before the class, taking a deep breath. "Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about my job as a small business owner." I saw Tommy's eyes widen with pride, and I felt a surge of confidence. "But more than that," I continued, "I want to talk about the most important job I've ever had, being a mother." As I spoke about resilience, about finding strength in adversity, I saw Matthew listening intently from the back of the room. For the first time since our split, I felt no anger towards him, only a sense of peace. After the presentations, as parents and children mingled, Matthew approached us. "You did well up there," he said, his voice lacking its usual bravado. "Both of you." Tommy beamed, looking between us uncertainly. "Thank you," I replied, surprised by the sincerity in my voice. Matthew cleared his throat. "Listen, Ella, I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about how things ended. I owe you an apology." I felt my breath catch. This was the last thing I'd expected. "I was so caught up in creating the perfect life, the perfect image," he continued, "that I forgot what really mattered. I took you for granted, dismissed your feelings. I'm sorry." The words hung between us, years of hurt and misunderstanding slowly beginning to dissolve. "I appreciate that, Matthew," I said softly. "It means a lot to hear you say that." Tommy looked up at us, hope shining in his eyes. "Does this mean you guys are getting back together?" Matthew and I exchanged a glance, a moment of understanding passing between us. No, sweetie, I said gently. Your dad and I are better as friends now, but we both love you very much, and that's never going to change. Matthew nodded, placing a hand on Tommy's shoulder. Your mom's right. We're still a family, just a different kind now. As we stood there, the three of us together yet irrevocably changed, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The journey had been difficult, filled with pain and uncertainty, but we'd come through it stronger. Later that evening, as Tommy and I walked hand in hand through the park near our new home, he looked up at me. Mom, are you happy now? I paused, considering his question. Was I happy? The life I'd envisioned for myself had shattered, but from the pieces, I'd built something new, something uniquely mine. Yes, Tommy, I said, squeezing his hand. I'm happy. Are you? He nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, I like our new life, and I'm proud of you, Mom. Tears pricked my eyes as I pulled him close. I'm proud of us, kiddo. As we continued our walk, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant hues, I reflected on our journey. The pain, the fear, the moments of despair, they had all led us here to this moment of peace and self-discovery. I'd lost a husband, but I'd found myself. I'd given up a life of luxury, but gained something far more valuable: respect, independence, and a deeper connection with my son. This wasn't the ending I'd once imagined for myself. It was something better, a new beginning, full of possibility and hope. And as Tommy and I walked home hand in hand, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together, stronger than ever before.